Hello, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. You could be doing anything, but you're here with us. I want to work out. Rather, I want to welcome y'all to the second series in our workshop Wednesdays. We got a lot of great stuff here for you all. Again, just thank y'all all for taking the time to come out. My name is Dom, and I'm excited to have you here with us. Workshop Wednesdays is hosted by the Mentor Me Collective, a community driven organization really that's dedicated to supporting aspiring technologists, whether you're just starting, you're making a career transition, or wherever you are in your career, right? We provide mentorship, career development resources, and educational programming to help you navigate the tech industry. Before we dive into tonight's sessions, we just have a little bit of housekeeping rules. Just make sure you excuse me. Ooh, I'm sorry, y'all. It's been a long day of talking. Make sure you follow us at our social media accounts at Mentor Me Collective on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, because I refuse to call it X. Also, please don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel so you'll never miss a replay for our insightful shops and all the stuff that we have going on in between. Very excited for tonight's session. It's about product management, and as you know, that's a big thing coming. It's one of the hottest topics around. So we have somebody here who's probably a tiny in the industry that we want to take the time to introduce you to. So for tonight's workshop, it's all about building a tech product from ideation into launch, whether you're new to product management or looking to strain your knowledge. This session will give you an insight to look at the key steps in product development, stakeholder management, and road mapping. We're honored to have Michael Morton as our guest speaker. Michael is a senior manager of platform strategy at Netskope and brings a wealth of knowledge to product management, program management, and strategy. So, he got the trifecta going. He holds his bachelor's from Penn State University and an MBA from Carnegie Mellon University. Over the last 15 years, he's worked at some of the world's leading companies such as Amazon, Walmart, JP Morgan Chase, and Chevron. Beyond his impressive corporate career, Michael is passionate about teaching and inspiring others. He's also an author of a book, The Power of Networking, and a motivational speaker dedicated to helping professionals grow in their careers. So as he's more than a one-hit wonder. He got all the wonders. We're thrilled to have him here tonight to break down the journey of building tech products using real-world examples. So please get ready to take notes. Please get ready to ask questions, and please get ready to offer all comments for him. I want to bring Michael onto the stage and let him introduce himself further. Hey, Michael, how we doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for the introduction, Dom. That was great.
Oh no, I mean, like I said, we get some really good speakers here, so we have to do it right. We can't shortchange you. You are a titan in the industry, and people are really here to learn more from you.
I love it. And I appreciate it. Thank everybody for joining the session today. I'm excited for the session. I'm I will be presenting to you, but I want to make sure it's engaging, it's interactive. I plan to ask questions throughout just to make sure that people are engaged throughout. And I'll start off. I want to ask, where's everyone dialing in from? If you can put in the chat what city, what state you're dialing in from. Love to see the diversity on the call, people dialing in from all different places. So make sure let's start using the chat.
Okay, well, we got somebody from NYC. It's taking a little
Yeah.
people. NYC is very popular. We're the best city in the best state. Oh, we got somebody from San Francisco. Okay, Miss
Okay.
Monique.
I love to see it. I have ties to both. So I'm originally from New York. I was born in Queens. I grew up in Rockland, and I've also lived in the Bay Area. I lived in Oakland. Uh, I live in Texas. I don't live in Dallas. I live in Austin right now, but I do see someone just posted Dallas. I've lived in Houston. I live in Austin today. So I've lived in a lot of different places. I've moved for different opportunities. As Dom alluded to, I've worked for Amazon, JP Morgan, Walmart, Chevron, Netskope, and every opportunity took me to a different city, different place. So I'd love to see the versatility and all the different places that people are dialing in from. Like I said, thank you again for joining the session. And with that, I will join. I see Atlanta on here too. I love Atlanta. It's one of my favorite cities. But with that being said, I will jump right in. Okay. So this is just high level agenda. I'll go through, these are the 6 items that I'll cover today. Like I said, I want this to be interactive. I see New York, more New York City, New Jersey. I love it. Um, I will have time at the end for Q&A. And at the end, I'll leave time so people can put their questions within the comment box. I'll make sure to go through those. But the 6 areas that I'll be covering today, first, I'll focus on defining the problem. Then I'll get into go-to-market strategy. I'll get into product development as well as roadmap, stakeholder management, continuous improvement, and last but not least, I will get into some case studies. I'll go through an example of a product that I worked on, and then I'll prompt an example for the audience to jump in and share their thoughts and their approach. And like I said, if you have questions, make sure to ask, and let's get started. All right. So first and foremost, when you're working on developing a product and building out a product, the first thing you need to understand is you have to define the problem. So at every company that I've worked with and been a part of, it's always focused on what are the customer's needs. So you have to understand what is the voice of the customer. And there's a lot of ways you can get information from the customer. It can be through surveys, it can be through interviews, it could be focus groups, you can leverage social media, you can even pay for data. I've worked at companies where we've paid to get information on our customers so we can understand what their pain points are, what their problems are. But number one, you always start with the customer and you work backwards. What is their pain point? What is the problem that you are trying to solve? If you come up with a product that provides a solution to a customer problem, that is going to set the path for you to be able to build that product out. So that is always number one. So if you get anything from today, the customer always comes first. And then along with understanding the pain points, you really have to do some market analysis. So when I say market analysis, you have to think about who is your target customer. Now, what I see there's a lot of issues when people are developing a product. They have a mindset where, oh, this product is for everybody. But you really have to take a step back and try to think through, okay, who exactly am I targeting? Because sometimes when you put out a net that's too wide, then you don't really reach anyone at all. So I'll give you an example when I say like your target customer. If I want to buy a car and like I have options, I can buy BMW, I can buy Toyota, I can buy, you know, Prius. There's so many different options. Each of those brands of cars are targeting different customers. They're at different price points, they're different segments, they're different target audience. So you really have to do an analysis and understand who is the customer that I'm going after? How do I plan to market to that segment? And, identify what the need is for that market. Okay. So that is the market analysis. And then last but not least is impact. So as I stated, the focus is on identifying the problem. What is the problem that the customer is facing? And you have to position what is the value proposition that your product is going to provide to a customer. Is it going to save them time? Is it going to save them money? That is very critical. So not only identify what's the value that your product will provide, but what will occur if they don't use your product? What will the consequences be? Like, will they continue to face these same pain points? Will it build up and become a worse of a problem if they don't use your product? So make sure that you're highlighting the impact, and you have to communicate that to your customer on how your product can solve their problem. Okay. All right. So now we're getting into the go-to-market strategy. So marketing is huge when it comes to product development. What good is a product if you're not properly marketing it out to the customers and they don't know about it and know the value that it brings? So first and foremost, you have to think about pricing. So similar to the example that I provided earlier, let's use cars as an example. I can buy a BMW, I can buy a Toyota. And this isn't a knock to any certain types of cars, but those two brands of cars are at different price points because they're going after different customer bases. So when you have your product, you have to think, is this a product that I want to make affordable for the masses? Is this an item that I want to be luxury, that I want to be higher priced? Is this a product that I want a one-time cost? You buy it and now you own it. Do I want a recurring price where they have to pay maybe a monthly subscription or an annual subscription? These are all things that you're going to have to think about when you're putting your product out in the market. What is, I talked about identifying your target customer. What is the size of the market? How many people are you trying to reach out with this product? Competition. I do want to make a note. It's important to evaluate who your competitors are and show the value add that your product has compared to your competitors. At the end of the day, your focus should be on the customer. So I brought that up in the previous slide. The customer always comes first. Focus on the customer, work backwards from there. Still be aware of who your competitors are and make sure that you can differentiate yourself and show how your product adds more value than the competition, but the customers always come first. But you really want to have a marketing strategy. How would you let the customers know and be aware of your product? Are you leveraging social media? Are you going to send out emails direct to customers to notify them? Are you using ads on television? You have to think, like, it's great to have a great product, but if no one's aware of the product and the value that it brings, you're ultimately not going to get any customers. So these are all things you have to take in consideration when it comes to your go-to-market strategy. All right. Moving pretty quickly. I love to see it. All right. So next, I know we're talking about this from the lens of product management. I wanted to add this slide because it is a collective effort. When you're launching and building a product, it's not one individual, it's not one specific team. It is a collection of multiple teams working together. So you'll have program management is involved. Program management is building out the business requirements. They're getting information on what the customer problem is, what their needs are, and writing out what the business objectives are, what the goals are. So program management is heavily involved in the development of a product. And then you have engineering. Engineering will be building out the actual product. They may be doing the coding. And then you'll have finance. And finance is always looking at the return on their investment. So when we're launching a new product, the product will have a budget. So let's say, as an example, finance gives a budget of $100,000. And you have, let's say, 8 months to 1 year to launch this product, and you have a budget of $100,000. And they've provided calculations that say we'll get a return on our investment in 5 years. After 5 years, we'll recoup the $100,000, and then from there, we'll start making profit. But you're going to work closely with finance to make sure that it's even a viable option to pursue. So, finance is heavily involved. Legal. There are some times where you're launching product and you have to make sure that you're abiding by the laws of whatever city, country, state that you're trying to launch this product in. So it's very important to have legal involved. And then obviously product management is involved. Product management, it kind of orchestrating across all the different teams. They're pulling with program management, engineering, and finance, and legal. And program management's working on the business requirements document. Product management is working on the product requirements document. So they're getting into the nuances of what the product features are, what the details are. So when it comes to building out a product, there's a lot of documentation that comes into play first. So building out those business requirements, what are the goals, what are the objectives, what are the problems, what are the needs, getting to the product requirements document, What are the product features? How are we going to build this out? Engineering has to understand how are we going to code this and build this. So it's a lot of preparation and documentation before you actually get to the implementation. Okay. All right. So now we'll get into roadmaps. So for this, has anyone heard? I'm not sure of backgrounds of people on the call. Do people know the difference between agile and waterfall? Put a +1 in the chat if you know the difference. If you don't, that's okay. That's why we're here. I'll be going through it anyway. But like I said, I want to gauge where the audience is. Okay. All right. Like that's perfect. A lot of you already know. So high level, I'll go through it just in case anyone is not aware. So agile is more flexible. It's adaptive. So if you are building out a product roadmap and you may have a lot of ambiguity, you may want to use agile. If you are working on a product roadmap and it's more structured, is detailed, thorough, you know exactly every step that you need to take, you may want to do waterfall. So waterfall is sequential. So you do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And then, like I said, agile is more flexible in case you don't have that level of detail. There's no right or wrong way. There, like people use different methodologies based off of their preference or based off the product they're launching. So there's not a one size fits all. I attached this screenshot of agile roadmap as an example, but this is a big part of product roadmap. So when you have the roadmap, your organization will collectively determine an end date of when you should launch a product. So today we're in February. So they may give you a goal. All right, we need to launch this product in September. So you will work on 2-week sprints. So generally all sprints are in 2 weeks, and you'll work with engineering team and you'll understand, okay, these are the different deliverables that we need to complete in order to launch the product. And you'll prioritize what is the most important item that needs to be launched first. What is the foundation? And then you build from there. And so you're building out, if you know that your launch date is in September, you have to build out sprint plans to make sure that you can hit that date. But there's a lot of things that you have to take in consideration. So, like I said, one is cost. You're working closely with finance, and finance is provided with a budget, and you're trying to launch by the time frame they've provided, but you're trying to stay within budget. And you know, one is resources. You only have so many resources, so you're going to work closely with engineering and try to understand, okay, how much effort does it take in order to launch this deliverable, to launch this task. So it's a prioritization and trying to balance the needs of all, trying to make sure you stay within cost, trying to make sure that you launch by the delivery date, trying to make sure that you utilize your resources the best of possible based on what's provided to you. So it's definitely a difficult task. I mean, it's a great to be a part of, to be able to manage it. It's a lot within product management, but this is what you have to deal with when it comes to roadmap. And this may in your career, when you're in product management, things may slip. You may, at a certain point in the product, in the launch, you may be over budget. You may be pushing things out to where it's past the expected delivery date. What your job is to try to figure out, okay, how can I get things back on track? Okay, right? Like we set a launch date in September. Right now, we're tracking to launch in October, November. How can we pull in the time frame to make sure that we can still launch in September? Okay, right now we're tracking where we're going over budget. We were only allocated $100,000. We're tracking towards $150,000. What can we do to save money and bring that in and make it closer to being on budget? So it's important to launch, first and foremost, it's important to launch a good product because you want to make sure that you have a great customer experience so the customer stays loyal and will continue to use your product moving forward. But at the end of the year, you have to go back to your leadership, and if they provided you a certain time frame, they expected you to launch a product or a certain budget, and you're consistently going over costs, you're going over time, it's going to reflect poorly on you. So you have to balance making sure that you're launching a good product, but doing it within the constraints that's provided to you regarding time, cost, and resources. Okay, well, we will move on. Stakeholder management. So a stakeholder is anyone that can essentially be impacted by the launch of this product. So number one, think of customers. You can have your product can be geared towards internal customers, internal to your company, external customers, but customers can be impacted. Employees, your employees are collectively working on this launch, so they're impacted. Think of shareholders. Shareholders have a vested interest in the company, and your ability to launch this product can impact their shares. Think of external partners. You may work with an external third-party vendor that's distributing your product. You may work with an external third party that's marketing your product. So first and foremost, you have to identify who your stakeholders are. Don't feel as though it's all on your shoulders. You can, leverage your manager, leverage other supervisors, leverage your colleagues, but you have to understand who your stakeholders are. You have to analyze what their needs are. Every stakeholder has different needs and wants. So you have to understand what everybody individually wants. You have to prioritize their needs. Like I said, the customer always comes first. So you want to prioritize them. But after the customer, then you have to determine, all right, do I focus on the employees? Do I focus on shareholders? Do I focus on external partners? And then you have to manage their expectations. You have to be able to address their concerns. You have to be able to communicate updates to them throughout the process. So stakeholder management is a big critical component. All right, I see questions coming in. What would you say is the most difficult part of stakeholder management? Uh, I would say the most difficult part is that sometimes needs are conflicting. So you can have a customer that wants one thing, and maybe that's not what's the best thing for a shareholder. So at that point, that's where it's important to prioritize. Where if you have conflicting interests, you have to determine, okay, who gets precedent and who am I going to focus on, and how am I going to manage the concerns of the other party. So that's where it can get a little bit difficult because you have so many stakeholders and everyone has different needs and wants. But at the end of the day, I think if you focus on the customer's needs, it will drive and make everyone happy. But that does make it difficult in the process when you're doing stakeholder management. But great question. I love that the questions are coming in already. All right. I love this slide. This slide is near to my heart uh, because I have a Lean Sigma, Six Sigma background, so I'm all for continuous improvement. Uh, does anyone here know what Lean Sigma is and Six Sigma is? Put a +1 in the chat if you do. It's okay if you don't know. Like I said, I'm that's what we're here for. I'm here to provide insight, share my knowledge. Right. So I'll give background. So Six Sigma is a methodology where you're trying to make sure that whatever product that you're providing to customers is high quality. How can I minimize the number of defects or eliminate the number of defects? So Six Sigma is trying to get 99.9% of the time, it is a high quality product. So let's take a car example. I know I talked about Toyota and BMW earlier. If if I produce a car, I don't want to sell a car to a customer and they drive off the lot and the wheels falling off or the engine starts smoking. Like that's a bad customer experience and it's dangerous. I don't want to bring harm to a customer. I want to make sure that it's a high quality product. So every time that a customer leaves my dealership, it should be a good quality car that they can use for years and years to come. And Six Sigma should make sure that every time a car is produced, it is high quality and there are no defects. Lean Sigma is focused on reducing waste. So if I produce 100 cars in one day, I could produce 100 cars in one day and I could have 100 people working at a production facility to make it, or I could have 5 people working at a production facility to make it. One is a lot more expensive because I have 100 people versus 5 people. So how do I reduce the number of people it takes to produce the product? Or I could produce 100 cars in a day and I could have $100,000 worth of scrap metal sitting there that's useless. Or I could produce 100 cars in a day and I have $1,000 worth of scrap metal. So how do I minimize the amount of waste every time I produce a product? So with one thing that you should always think about is how can I make things better? So does anyone know the term MVP? If you do, feel free to add it in the chat. This isn't a sport reference. I know I know we use MVP in sports all the time. Does anyone know what MVP is? Yes, great job, TC. It is a minimum viable product. Renee got it too. I love it. Oh yes, Monique has it. All right. So when you're launching a product, you're initially launching an MVP, and this is to gauge and prove that there is value in your product. There is demand. Customers want this. They need this. You can put out a minimum viable product, get get feedback from the customer, and that will let you to continue to iterate. So you can learn from feedback and continue to build upon it. So when you launch a product, you shouldn't have a mindset that you launched a product and your job is done and you can walk away. Instead, you launch a product, you get feedback from customer, you learn, you iterate, you continue to make a better product. So let's take an example. iPhone. What version of iPhone are we on today? iPhone 16? What you'll see is every year a new version of the iPhone has been launched. We started with iPhone 1 and then 2 and then 3, and they keep getting feedback from customers and they keep finding ways to make it a better product. At one point, you had your iPhone and you had to type in a code. And then you can open your phone with your thumbprint. And now you can open your phone with your face scan. And they're constantly finding new ways to make a phone better. So you should have that mindset. You initially put out a minimum viable product, and then once you launch the product, you learn and you iterate and you continue to make it better. It's always about continuous improvement. You can always innovate and make things better. All right. And then I saw a question about the Lean Sigma certification. I'm a big fan of certifications personally. I recommend getting a certification. For one, there are some roles that you may apply for that will require a Lean Sigma certification or a Six Sigma certification. So if you don't have the certification, you won't even be able to apply to certain roles. There are some roles where it's not required, but it's preferred. So if you have it and another candidate doesn't have it, it will give you a competitive advantage. And then third, even when it's not required, preferred, to me, it just gives me another mindset of how to approach different projects, product launches, where I'm always trying to figure out how can I make sure it's as high quality as possible. How are we reducing waste? And having that mindset, that mentality, that methodology, that helps ensure that I always stay under budget and high quality, and I'm always giving the best experience for customers. So, in my personal opinion, I love the certification. I would recommend it. It's worth looking into. I know a lot of people are hesitant when it comes to cost. A lot of these certifications can get expensive and be time consuming to obtain, but you have to look at the return on your investment. I talked about ROI earlier when it came to finance or launching your product. Return on investment, you have to invest in yourself. So if I spend $1,000, $2,000 to get a certification, and that certification helps me get a job that's making $10,000, $20,000 more than I'm making today, and helps me get to my dream job, then it's worth me investing that. So I'm all for investing in yourself. All right. Nice. So now we'll get into some case studies. So I will go through an example that I personally had that where I launched a product, and then I want to open it up and give a case study to everybody, and I want to get everyone's thoughts. So as I said, I worked at Amazon. One of the products I launched is called a product basket. So I worked within Amazon Business, and Amazon Business is on the B2B side, so business to business. So let's take, I'm just going to pull a random company. Let's take Tesla as an example. So, and Tesla, in the office, they have people working at desk. At their desk, everyone needs a monitor. They need a keyboard. They need a mouse. So Tesla can go to Best Buy and buy those products, or they can go to Amazon and buy those products. So we can fulfill for a company, any company, Tesla, Google, Apple, we can provide IT equipment from Amazon. Or let's take Tesla as example to continue. They need to buy stuff for the break room. Their employees will eat lunch in the break room. What do they need in a break room? They might need utensils. They might need plates. They might need cups. They might need coffee. They can go to a grocery store and buy those products, or they can buy those products from Amazon. We'll take Tesla again. They could, at Tesla, they need stuff for janitorial supplies because they have people come and clean their bathrooms and different parts of the office space. Once again, they could go to a store and buy those products, or they can buy cleaning supplies from Amazon. So my product was serving a need where the sales team within Amazon was trying to sell Amazon Business to other companies. And sometimes the sales team could just go to a company and say, hey, we're Amazon. We can save you time. We can save you money. You should come to Amazon Business for your product needs. Some companies wanted to see the data. They wanted to ensure that we had the products that they were looking for. So the problem that we were solving is that we use a product basket to do analysis to show the value of coming over to Amazon Business for their product needs. So I talked earlier about the first thing, defining the problem. We identified a problem. These companies are spending a lot of money on these different products, whether it's IT equipment, whether it's janitorial supplies, whether it's break room supplies, and they could come to Amazon and we could save them money. So one problem is cost. Amazon can save you money for you buying the products that you need. The second problem is convenience. So a company can send someone out to Best Buy and buy IT equipment. They can send them to the grocery store and buy break room stuff. They can go to another store for janitorial supplies. Does it make sense for you to go to 3 to 4 different stores to buy all the products that you need? Or does it make sense to go to Amazon and buy everything that you need in a one-stop shop? So now we're solving the problem of convenience. The third item, safety. Safety is a problem. So think about the fact that you're paying someone to work 40 hours a week. Do you want them leaving the office and driving to all these different stores and picking up all these items and then bringing it back to the office? That's potentially a safety risk. Do you want to pay them to spend so many hours out there driving around picking up products and something could potentially happen while they're out driving? Or would you rather them sit in their office where they're comfortable, they're safe, they make a couple clicks online and everything's ordered and gets delivered right to the office? So that shows that we've identified what the problem is. We identified our target market. We found a lot of companies who were buying products that they needed for these different categories that weren't buying on Amazon. So now we're trying to pitch this product to these companies. We're leveraging the product basket, the product that I worked to build. I worked with a team of engineers in Spain to build this product. So we identified what the problem was. We identified our target market. We identified a price point for this product, and we launched this. And this was a mechanism that the sales team was able to utilize to drive in business. And we made sure anytime the sales team utilized a product basket to try to get customers over to Amazon, they had to put it into Salesforce. And then they either marked it as closed won or closed lost. So we could track the data to show how much the product basket was able to help in converting customers over and the dollar amount that it was able to drive. So this is a good example of me working in a situation where I was able to build a product. It wasn't for an external customer. Like I said, that's very important to note. I think a lot of people think of products and think of a physical product that you're sending to an external customer. Sometimes it could be an internal customer. It could be another organization within your company that you're building a product for. So that is one example that I have while working at Amazon. But I want to, like I said, I want to make this interactive. I want to make this engaging. I want to pose a question to all of you. So first question, how many people have a Alexa or Google Nest or use Apple Siri? Put a +1 in the chat if you use any of these voice assistant tools. All right, I'm starting to see some +1s. Nice. Yes. Fantastic. All right, so today, Alexa is in 8 different countries. Okay. Let's imagine that you're a product manager and I'm assigning, I want you to launch Alexa in China. It is currently, Alexa is not in China. What are some of the things that you have to think about when you're launching a product like Alexa in China? Feel free to add your thoughts in the comments, in the chat. What is the problem you're trying to solve? Who's your target audience? Think about these different things. Any thoughts that people want to add in the chat? This is open. Like I said, I want to make this engaging. Culture. Exactly. That's a great point. Culture is very important. So, like I said, Alexa has been launched in 8 different countries. What people are using Alexa for here in the United States is different than what they're using it for in the United Kingdom, is different than what they may want to use it for in China. So understanding the needs of the customer. Don't assume that customers will use Alexa the same way in China as they use here in the US. So culture, great. Oh, Renee, data privacy laws, fantastic. I brought this up earlier where I showed the picture of the different teams getting involved. I showed product management, I showed legal, I showed finance. That's a legal question. Yes, like we can easily launch Alexa in the US. That doesn't mean we can launch it in China, in another country. We have to make sure that we're abiding by the laws and regulations of that particular area. So that's something that we have to think about. Language barriers, fantastic. In the US, the dominant language is English. There's a lot of Spanish being spoken here. In China, they may speak Mandarin. They speak different languages. So we have to make sure that we're thinking about that and taking that consideration when we're launching in a different country. Competition, Omu, fantastic. Like I said, we focus on the customer's needs, but we're aware of our competitors. We have to understand, are there other voice assistants in China? And if there are, what value does our product add that those competitors do not? Political biases, that's a great one. Like I said, there's so many nuances that we have to think about. Oh, I love it. Marketing and branding. So I went through this earlier. The go to market strategy. That's definitely critical. Like, how are you getting this information out to the customers? Do you have ads? Are you using social media? How are they aware of what you're providing? Do you have a sales team that's going to be on the like selling the product? There's so many nuances that you have to take in consideration. This is fantastic. Everybody's ready to be a product manager. I love to see it. These are all different things that we have to think about. Renee, if there's a desire for it, that's fantastic. We have to understand, what are the customer needs. Are we going to launch something in China and we don't even know if customers will need it in China? We've identified the demand in the other 8 countries that have launched it. That doesn't mean that it should be launched in China as well. So this is all of you are providing great feedback. These are all things that you have to take in consideration. So I love to see all the ideas that are popping up and all the things that you have to take in consideration, because that is what's going to make sure that you're building and launching a great product. You have to think about all of these nuances. Like I said, it's a lot of groundwork, documentation between the business requirements document, the product requirements document, the sprint planning. There's a lot that goes into it before you actually can build out the product. So everyone has hit it right, the nail right on the head. Fantastic. All right. So, like I said, I want to make sure that I'm leaving about 15 minutes or so for Q&A. I do want to ask for feedback. I know I just showed a slide with continuous improvement. I'm trying to improve myself. If you're willing to scan the QR code and give feedback, or go on the website talk.ac/Michael V. Morgan and put the code MMC for Mentor Me Collective. For those who are willing to fill out feedback and leave your email, if you feel comfortable leaving your email, I will raffle off about 10 copies of my book, The Power of Networking. I'll give out some of the redemption codes for the audio version of the book. The book is about, obviously, core heart of it is around the importance of building and maintaining your relationships, the benefits of doing so in your personal life as well as your career. But I also get into interviewing tips, how to excel in your role, how to advance in your career, how to navigate workplace challenges. So there's a lot of great details in the book. So please, if you're willing to give me feedback, like I said, I will make sure to raffle off copies of the book to about 10 of you. And with that being said, I want to make sure that I'm giving time for Q&A. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I also have my own website, so feel free to go on my website. I have a contact me form where you can reach out to me there as well. So I'd love to connect with all of you. But like I said, want to leave time for Q&A, so feel free to use the chat, and I will try to go through all the questions that I can.
Well, first of all, Michael, before we even get into that sensational presentation, so once again, thank you for taking the time to meet with us. And guys, if he's offering a free copy of the book, you should always leverage everything that's free for you. Again, like, this is the power of networking. If you've ever been in any space or time, like, the only reason why some people get jobs is through networking and people being able to say, like, I vouch for that person. So before we go into some of the questions people have asked throughout the chat, I want to ask you, like, and this is a time for you to get a little humble brag on. So, be a little braggadocious about this. But throughout writing that book, what would you say is like the biggest lesson that you've learned when you wrote that book? You gave all the tips and everything, and you reviewed everything. What's something that's like you're proud of, the biggest lesson you learned from writing that book?
The biggest lesson I've learned, I would say, I'd say one of the things that I'm trying to do more is just be more in the moment and be grateful. And throughout the book, I'm giving advice, but I'm also talking about my personal experiences, how I utilized this when I worked at JP Morgan and Chevron and Amazon. And as much as I'm always striving for more, I want to get to that next title, that next level. Writing the book made me reflect on all the things that I've accomplished. Like I've written a book. I've worked at some of the biggest companies in the world. I've been able to transition from individual contributor to people manager. I've traveled the world for work trips. I've been to China for work. I've been to Japan. I've been to Spain. I've been to so many places, done so many great things. So as much as you constantly want to continue to grow and develop and get to that next level, writing a book helped me just sit back and appreciate the moment, appreciate my journey, appreciate what I've been through. So I'd say that's probably one of my biggest lessons learned. Sometimes you have to be grateful for what you have and just be in the present.
And I think that speaks to everybody here, whether you're trying to transition to tech or you're already in tech, just be grateful that you're at the point that you are, because so many people did not make it, but you did because of your own determinations or whatever drives you. So I think that's a great lesson to take from that, right? Like, just be thankful, live in the moment. If we worry too much about the future, we can't enjoy it. And if we stuck on the past, we still won't enjoy. So let's enjoy the moment what we have here. And speaking of enjoying the moment, let's go back to something Monique asked earlier in the chat, which is, what is the best way to keep stakeholders informed and involved throughout the project?
Yeah, absolutely. So internally within the company, I like to send out like a bi-weekly, weekly update. So people know exactly, like, this is the roadmap, this is the status. These items are green, they're on track. These items are yellow, like they're falling behind a little bit. This is the steps that I'm going to make sure that I take and put them back on track. These items are red, like we need to remove this blocker as soon as possible. So that way, all of the employees internally are fully aware of what's going on. So to me, that's a great way. Also, I mean, I hold meetings regularly internally within the company as well, so I can share that information as well. Externally, when it comes to external customers, I try to make sure that I'm giving them information on an as need basis. I don't try to give them too much information. You don't want to get customers excited and tell them that, hey, this product's coming out in August, and then you have to go back to them and say, oh, actually, it's not coming out until October or November, and then now you're losing trust. You're losing faith in your customer. So trying to find the right moments, and that's also where I'll work with the marketing team to really understand, okay, when should we communicate things externally to the customer? How do we want to communicate things? What's the best method? So that way you're getting customers excited about the product, but you're not losing trust on when the product will actually come out. So it's a balancing act. But I would say internally, number one, sending out emails. Like, you will have internal meetings. You don't want too many people in your meetings. I don't know if everyone else has faced this, but if you invite 50 people to your meeting, it'll be hard to get things done. So your meetings, make sure the most critical people are involved in the meetings, and then people that just need to be informed, you can update them through emails, and then work closely with the marketing team to figure out the best times to get customers engaged, have them informed, notified. Same thing with shareholders. Work with your supervisor, try to determine the best time frame to pull in shareholders. When it comes to external partners, so if you're working with a third party for distribution or third party for marketing or anything else, I try to be as transparent as possible. Like, you're essentially, you are a team together collectively. So I try to give them information up front so that they can better assist me in my needs. Yes, I'm paying the third party, but they're assisting me to help drive the business and make sure that the product launches as smooth as possible. So the more information I share with them, the better they can support me. So I just try to be really transparent when I'm working with a third party and I'm paying them.
Yep, and that's the easiest way to be, as long as you're transparent. Also, I think you hit on a note, like, too many people in meetings, too many chefs in the kitchen. Only include the people that absolutely need to be involved. Everyone else can get a quick status update, so we don't derail the project. Because if you let one person talk, everyone's going to voice their opinions, and sometimes you just need, like, hey, I just need the 3, 4 things that we need, and let's go from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so JET asks, how does customer surveys assist in developing the MVP prior to launch and continuous improvements?
So surveys are fantastic. So I love putting out surveys. I'll say the tough thing with surveys, you have to incentivize customers to fill them out. So there are, I'd say industry average 10 to 20%, maybe at the most, will respond to surveys. So you have to take some of the surveys with a grain of salt because it doesn't reflect the entire population. But any data is good data. Um, so a lot of times when I'll send out a survey, I'll put some type of incentive. If you're willing to spend 5 minutes of your time, 10 minutes of your time, we'll put you in a raffle for this gift card, or we'll send you this product. But like I said, the voice of the customer is critical. You have to understand what the customer's needs are, and you have to develop a product that solves that problem, that meets those needs. So if you're not able to get their feedback, whether it's through surveys, whether it's through focus groups, whether it's through interviews, whether it's through social media, it's hard to determine what to develop. Because at that point, you might just be guessing. I think the customer wants this. I think the customer wants that, without truly knowing. So definitely leverage surveys as much as possible. There's a lot of mechanisms you can use in order to get the voice of the customer, but it is definitely critical to understand what your customer's needs are.
I think that's the most difficult when to like listen to the customer versus when you know like internally like no we can't do this, and I think like that's a constant fight because like the quote goes the customer is always right, and I hate when people say that quote because it's never the full thing. It's the customer is always right in terms of appearance and beauty, meaning you don't if you think something's ugly you don't dissuade the customer from that, but that doesn't mean that we don't know internally what our product should be doing and how it affects our customers. So we listen and we go for continuous improvement, but some stuff is just not practical to add at certain points of a product.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, like you said, some things aren't practical to add. And one of the things I'd also say, you want to under promise and over deliver, because if you commit to too many things and tell the customer, oh, I can bring you the moon, and now they're expecting something and they get something that's completely different, like you don't want to lose customer trust. So you really have to balance. Yes, the customers come first, but what makes sense? What is feasible? What is practical? So you have to balance the needs of the customer with what's feasible with the business.
Absolutely. So we're going to pass on to Daniel Lord. He says, "What do you do when there's a shift in the market and the product team is working and the product the team is working on is no longer in demand?"
Yeah, sometimes you have to be flexible. You have to be adaptable. This has happened to me multiple times at Amazon. I'll be completely honest. I've worked on projects. I've worked on initiatives where we were working to launch a product, and a month before product launch, we get pulled into a meeting, and senior leadership says, "Hey, we're going to pivot, and we're going to work on something else." So you have to listen to the business. That's one of the things I love about Amazon. Amazon's not afraid to fail. They'll launch a product. If it doesn't work, they'll pivot. They'll do something else, or they'll work and develop a product. And if they don't see that it makes sense to move forward anymore, they'll pivot and work on something else. They call it a one-way door versus a two-way door. So two-way door, I can make a decision. I can start working on a product. If I determine there's no longer demand, I can pivot back. So you like I said, you have to listen to the market. You have to listen to your customers, and if it's determined that it doesn't make sense to pursue anymore, you have to pivot. You have to be flexible. You have to be willing to adjust. That does happen sometimes, but your ability to adjust and understand what's going on, that will take you very far in your career. If you have this mentality that, oh, it's some cost, I already spent so much money, I have to put this product out here, well, now you're just wasting time and resources for something that's not in demand anymore. So you really have to listen to the market, and when there's a shift, you have to be flexible and willing to shift with it.
And that's definitely is key right there, right? Because at the end of the day, shifts are going to happen no matter what you do. So it's just being prepared for that shift. And also, to your point, innovation doesn't come from success; it comes from failure. Like Apple didn't get to where it was because the first iPhone was the best iPhone. It was like we had an idea, but it's not doing what we really completely want to do. So how do we continue to innovate that and continue to build on that? Same thing here. Like an idea, just because you have an idea right now that does not work, doesn't mean that you can't form into an idea that can work. It just happens to be willing to do that work to get to that point.
Absolutely. You bring up a fantastic point. One of the examples they use all the time at Amazon brought out the Fire Phone. I don't know how many people remember the Fire Phone, but it didn't work out. But Amazon's still doing well. I mean, they didn't look at it as failure. You know, they launched a product, it didn't work. They took a look back, what worked, what didn't work, and let's figure something else out. So everything is a learning experience. It's all about perspective. If you're down on yourself and you look at it, oh, I tried to launch this and it didn't go well. Well, what reflect on it? What worked well? What didn't work well? And how can you make improvements the next time you launch a product?
Absolutely. So TC writes, what do you do to gain consensus amongst internal stakeholders, designers, engineers, product management, owner, etc., or exec, I
Look,
should say, not etc.
yeah. So I would say two things. One, I try to make sure that teams are looking at the big picture. So a lot of teams will have their own internal motives that are driving them, where they'll want this one thing, they'll want this one thing, but they're not thinking about what's best for the company. They're not thinking about what's best for the customer. So I try to gain consensus by making sure that we're all focused on the right things. Like what's driving us to launch this product? We're focusing on the customer. These are the customer's needs. What are the principles and values of our company? Our principles are customer obsession and customers come first. Like we should be making decisions based off of our principles and based off what the customers need. So on one aspect, I'm trying to make sure that people are thinking about the big picture and not thinking about their individual teams or organizations. The second thing that I like to do, and it can be time consuming, but it often works for me, I'll have individual meetings. So I'll meet with the design team, I'll meet with the engineering team, I'll meet with program management team. I'll understand their individual concerns. I'll find ways to address their concerns so that when we have a meeting collectively and I'm trying to get a consensus, I already understand what everyone's concerns are and I've already addressed them so that when we meet, we're all in alignment, as opposed to I'm in a meeting with a big group and one team I didn't speak to, now they've called me out in the group and now it's bringing concern and now people aren't sure if this is the best path forward. So I tried to make sure I take the time to meet with teams individually and address whatever their needs are so that when we meet collectively, I already know that going into the meeting that I already have their consensus. So I'd say a combination of those two, making sure that teams think big on what's best for the organization and for the customer, and then also meeting with them offline so that when we meet collectively, I already know what concerns they have and I've already addressed them.
Excellent. So I guess we're going to leave off on this final question. Oh, actually, Chanel actually had a better question that I want to make sure we draw for our final question. How do you manage stakeholder expectation when there are conflicting priorities?
Yeah, fantastic question, Chanel. So, like I said, it's difficult, but as long as you can prioritize what is most important. So let's take a customer versus a shareholder as an example. So they may have conflicting expectations, priorities, but if I sell to the shareholder and say, "Hey, this is what the customer is looking for. If I can make the customer happy, more customers will buy the product and we will have these customers for a lifelong time." So, and that having a customer happy and giving them positive experience and giving them what they want, that's what's going to drive up the share prices. So, if I can get them to think the big picture, similar to what I was saying when you're working with the design team and the product team and program management, and have them think about the big picture for the organization, I have to give stakeholders the same, where I have to make sure, like, hey, I understand you're looking for this, but I need to prioritize this, and this, by prioritizing this, this will give you what you're looking for. It will give you the same result. So make sure I'm picture in a way where it still benefits them, even though it's not what they initially or what their expectations were. But I have to position in a way where I'm showing the value add for them. You always got to focus on the value add.
Very big points. Very big points. So just out of respect for the time, unless you want to answer one more question, let me know if you do. If because Daniel has one more question, then we can end off that note. But how do you resolve conflict among team members and manage dependency?
Yeah. So conflict among team members, it's very difficult. Uh, I would say the biggest thing is focus on how to improve the problem. So what I see a lot of times when it comes to work conflict is teams like to point fingers, they like to point blame, but they're not giving constructive feedback. They're not focused on a solution. They're just saying, "Oh, it's this team's fault, it's this person's fault." I always try to take a step back and I say, "Hey, this isn't about finger pointing. This isn't about blaming who's right, who's wrong. How do we make things better? How do we improve this process? How do we make sure that we're able to launch this product effectively?" So I'm more so focused on how do we get better and how do we get the result that we're looking for, like the completion of the project, the launch of the product, as opposed to figuring out whose fault we're over cost, over budget, or we're behind schedule. Like I don't care about pointing fingers. That's not important to me. Like I said, everything's a lesson learned, and like moving forward, we can find ways to improve the next time we launch a product. But I'm all for how do we get the end result that we're looking for? Or if someone if there's team members that are in conflict, like are you giving constructive feedback for improvement? I've seen a lot of conflicts within teams where they'll say, I don't like your idea. Well, you can't just say I don't like your idea. Like, why don't you like the idea? Do they need more due diligence on the finance side? Do they need to think about more scenarios? Like, how do you give constructive feedback? Just telling someone that you don't like their idea, that's not constructive. So, making sure that we're focused on the right things, to me, that really helps resolve conflict and make sure that we can focus on what's really important.
And that's a great way to end it all. So first off, before anything, I want y'all, whoever is here, I know there's about 20 of y'all here still. I want y'all to scan that QR code, give Michael all the feedback. He gave us a great sessions, or if you don't, go to https colon forward slash twice talk AC / Michael V. Morgan and use the code MMC when you apply to give him feedback. He was gracious enough to donate extra time. So let's be gracious enough to donate our time to give him his survey and also connect with him on his LinkedIn. Again, he wants to make sure that he is helping the community in any way. So we need to make sure that we give Michael, again, I'm just going to give you your flowers, black man. We love to see it. It's a difficult job. It requires wearing many hats. It requires being very much a fill-in for stuff. It requires so much out of you. And so for you to do your day and your 9 to 5 and still come and give us all this content, we have to be nothing but thankful for you. So we start with things and we end with things. So one, just make sure that I thank you just for standing up, for coming up here, for giving us all like just some great knowledge and stuff. You even told me some stuff about product management that I didn't even know, because launching products is a difficult thing. No matter what people tell you, you may make it look easy, but it's a very much a difficult thing. So let's all just give a great shout out, give a warm shout out to Michael just for sticking with us from 6 o'clock to nine. To I about to say 9 to 7:05.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again, Dom. I appreciate being here. And thank you to the audience. I love everyone's engagement, their feedback. Really appreciate it. And as Dom alluded to, if you want to reach out to me and connect me on LinkedIn, or reach out on my website, if there's anything else I can do to assist you in your career journeys, feel free to let me know.
And also, I mean, this also helps us. Please, if you watch this session, shout out Michael, because we would love to have him back. We have so many different events that are going to come around product. If you really enjoyed this session, and Michael, I would love to just publicly extend the invitation. We want you here as many times as you want to be here, because I think this was one of the best sessions that I've seen. It was great, very interactive, and I just think that you gave people from a program, project, and product management how all three of those kind of tie into stuff, different aspects of things that you work on, which is not something that we all the time see.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to come back. So let me know. I'm here.
Well, we love it. So before we let everyone go for the night, just remember, follow us on every social media at Mentor Me Collective. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please stay connected to our community. If you don't have the Slack, please feel free to email or message us. We'll make sure you're in the Slack community. Once again, I want to thank you, Michael. I want to make sure that everyone has a lovely Wednesday evening. We have another workshop coming next week, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But for now, we bid you adieu and cannot wait until the next time we have this around.
Fantastic. Have a good
Yep.
night, everybody.
Good night.